Today on The Crit House, we welcome Sabrina Santiago, a Brooklyn-based photographer whose work captures the poetry of everyday life. Known for her street photography, photojournalism, and environmental portraiture, Sabrina's projects explore themes of style, identity, and coming of age. Sabrina is a consistent contributor to the New York Times and has collaborated with major clients like Polaroid, Gucci, Nike, and many more, cementing her place as a leading voice in contemporary photography. Today, on The Crit House, we discuss Sabrina Santiago's creative influences from Vivian Maier, Justine Kurland, Alessandra Sanguinetti, Rosalind Fox Solomon, and the great Helen Levitt.
In looking at your portfolio online and your website, you have a very broad body of work. You do, you're sort of streetish, but a lot of portraits and a lot of assignments for companies. How do you describe yourself as a photographer? Because you're so broad with the things that you capture.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me. I would describe my portraiture and my photography practice as a way to sort of understand myself, but also understand the world around me. So that deals with being on the street and communities that are on the street. But also when I'm on commission, it's about like understanding the person that I'm photographing and this silent exchange that happens when you photograph someone. And I think what I'm interested in is environment and how people sort of portray themselves. So whether that's on the street or if they're showing up on location for a shoot, how do people present themselves, whether it's the way they dress or their body language or some sort of combination of the two. I think I'm trying to investigate what a picture can say about someone, but also what it can say about myself. So I've been shooting since I was like 10 years old, pretty consistently. My dad gave me my first film camera, and since that day, it was like, you find the thing, and I'm so lucky I found it really early, but it was just the light bulb just went off, and I was like, this is the thing that makes me feel alive. Once I realized that photography was something that came into my life, I was like, I can never go back.
You seem to have such a good relationship with the people that you are capturing. And I don't know if that's just because you have a way of making them feel comfortable. How does that happen? Am I perceiving that correctly?
Thank you for saying that. I think it really depends, because sometimes if it's on the street and it's a really quick moment, I think it's sometimes about just like an understanding, like an innate understanding of one another, whether it's just, I think it also comes down to intentions. When I am photographing someone, I go in with the intention of making them feel like their most beautiful self. And I think, making someone comfortable in front of the camera is a tough thing. And I've learned, ways to make someone feel loose in front of the camera, but then also, when it's a candid moment, sometimes I don't know if they're going to read as comfortable, but then I get the picture back and I'm like, wow, there is something there, whether it's their eye contact or something that is unsaid. And I think that's also just the beauty of photography and the photo. When you get it back, you sort of understand something about the person or something about yourself. I really appreciate when people say that my subjects feel comfortable, because that's something that I really strive for when I make photos and when I approach photography in general.
Well, it's something that I've never been able to do, so I admire it when I see it. So it's good to see. So this show is about sort of your creative influences, and the assignment is to choose 5 images, whether it's a photograph or a work of art. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your process for deciding on what those 5 images would be. And was it hard?
This was such a difficult decision for me. I was really I was wrestling with it for so long, and we actually had to postpone because I was like, I'm not ready. But honestly, it was such a great exercise, and it sort of made me reflect in a whole new way. I was just going through all of these images that have really shaped my understanding of photography. And I landed on these five because I was going back and forth, but I decided on picking images that I visit regularly, whether it's through books or just going online, and photographers that are constantly top of mind for me. I have this sort of morning meditation that I've been doing for the last few years where I just pick up photo books in the morning right when I wake up, and I'll flash through them. And there's a stack that's always right by my bed. And some of those books change out, but then there's some that have been there for like 2 years and they sit on top of my bed. And I just, I don't know. There was something about these five that I feel like kind of encapsulate a lot of what I'm going for in my own work. And they're all women photographers, which means a lot to me because they've all really shaped my inspiration. They're huge inspirations to me, but they've also shaped my own understanding of what photography can be. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about them.
Well, let's do that. Let's take a look at your five images. We start with this self-portrait from Vivian Maier.
Yes. So Vivian Maier is a photographer that if I could have anyone at my breakfast table, I think it might be her. Yeah, I mean, when I first learned about her and her story, I was instantly captivated. It was sort of like, you know that corny saying, it's like it's not about the journey. I mean, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like her story sort of encapsulates that. Her self-portraits in particular are some of my favorite pictures of all time. I have a very strong self-portrait practice, and a lot of my inspiration has come from Vivian Maier. And, you know, it was hard for me to actually decide which self-portrait I was going to pick of hers. But there's something about this one that, I don't know, you get a sense of, she has this mystique about her, and I feel like this one sort of hits that note. You get her shape and you get her hat that she's like known for wearing. You get her her shapely body. And she was kind of, yeah, she was kind of like reclusive. And I feel like I look at her self-portraits and I wonder what the moments before and after were. And it sort of they all make me so introspective and have really shaped my own practice, wanting to capture myself in, you know, moments where maybe I don't feel beautiful, or maybe moments where, you know, there's something that's happening in my life that I feel like I want to kind of memorialize, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think for Vivian Maier's work, like her body of work in general, some of my favorite pictures I've ever laid my eyes on. And I think her self-portraits have really impacted me and wanting to capture every stage of my life. And I don't know, there's something about her self-portraits that I feel like are timeless, but they also say so much about her journey. You know, she was a nanny and she wasn't really seeing a lot of her images, but she's still making them because they were an extension of who she was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even about her needing to share the work. And to me, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about her story, is that she was going to make the pictures regardless. And that's sort of how I feel about my own journey. Like, you know, even if I wasn't doing photography full time, I would still be making these pictures because it's who I am and it's part of my story. And yeah, she was just making the pictures because it was what she felt called to do. And she didn't need any external validation, and she didn't need anyone else to see the images. She was okay with just seeing them, some of them just like through the camera, and not even seeing them printed.
Right. Amazing. Your second image comes from Justine Kurland, and she's been featured on this program once before, but I'm not that familiar with her. And tell us why this is here.
So she is, I mean, she's an extraordinary person, an incredible artist, and she's a mentor for me. So I knew she was going to make it in here too. This is from her Girl Picture series, which is one of my all-time favorites, definitely top 3 series of all time. I look at this book almost every week. There's something about this project that really speaks to me as a woman photographer. She was shooting these in the 90s when she was in Yale, and she was finding these girls and going on these road trips with them and staging them and telling them stories and having them act out these situations. And sometimes she would give them, a very specific thing. And then other times she would, just let the landscape lead them to where they wanted to go. And I feel like this series just sort of has the perfect blend of spontaneity and also planned. Like she was, orchestrating these girls to come together. There's this community building that I see in these images with these girls who are willing to explore. And this series, I mean, it encapsulates what I want to do with my current body of work that sort of focuses on women of color specifically. So she's been helping me actually with making this work. And this is definitely like a huge inspiration for what I've been working on for the last few years. So I definitely needed to include this picture.
Alessandra Sanguinetti, I believe is how that's pronounced. I might be wrong.
Yes.
But
This is from her series, The Adventures of Gil and Belinda. There were two Argentinian cousins that she knew from her hometown, and she was actually making a different body of work at the time, but these girls were always around. And then she realized, wait, this is actually the work I'm supposed to be making. So she followed these girls throughout their life. This is one image, but in the series, you sort of see them change, you see them grow, you see them have kids, you see them literally evolve as she's evolving. And honestly, it brings tears to my eyes when I look at this work because it shows the lifetime collaborators. And I'm really drawn to photographers who have that, where they pick people and they follow them and they see how they change while the photographer is changing. And that's something I do within my own work. I have a few collaborators that I've photographed over the course of many years, and this series just embodies what a lifetime collaboration can look like. And there's this sort of dreaminess to the images, and they're also very cinematic, which is another thing about Justine's work that I feel like really resonates with me. They also feel like they could be, it's like, I want to know what film this would come out of.
how long did the project go on for? And is it still going on?
It's still going on. She's still photographing them. This image was made in 2002, but she started photographing them when they were 5 or 6 years old. And yeah, one of them has had kids now. And you see that, yeah, literally have kids in the images. And I just love seeing people change in a longer body of work like this. Yeah, there is something about the way, I mean, this image in particular, like, it just feels like out of a dream. It's like the combination of reality and dreams. What's that sweet spot in between? I feel like she really does a great job at that in her images.
Your fourth image is this classic shot. She's Helen Levitt is just funny. I find her imagery amusing.
I know. I love this picture. It was one of the first pictures in school that I remember really sticking out to me. I know that it's been dubbed Spider Girl,
Yeah.
but I just love this picture because it speaks to the decisive moment that I feel like is really something I'm trying to find in street photography. It's like the anticipation and then finding that moment and knowing exactly when to hit it. And it's like the fleeting time. And I feel like she, as a street photographer, is someone I really admire because there's this sense, she was mostly shooting in black and white, but then did color work. And I love her color work so much. And I feel like this shot sort of has all of the elements I love about a photograph. You sort of have the composition that's leading you to her, but her body language is sort of off and strange, but it's also like, you can't really, she sort of feels like, I don't know, it's such a strange body position, but then the way she's framed, it's so strange, but it also makes me laugh. And I like finding the comedy in the everyday too. And I think Helen really does that in a lot of her images.
Yeah, there's so much joy in her work. And I mean, I spend a lot of time walking around the streets. You don't see that as much. in terms of moments. I mean, most 99.9% of the time, people on the street, they're just doing their thing. They don't have a face on at all. And somehow she is always able to capture those moments that
Right.
I never see or I never
Yeah.
capture anyway.
I'm trying to find my own version of this one.
So let's wrap it up with the first four photographers I knew something about all of them. I do not know Rosalind Fox Solomon. Tell us about this image and Rosalind.
Hey, so this is from her book that just came out last year called A Woman I Once Was. She's 94 years old, but she started her photography career a little bit later. So she started when she was like around 38, I think. And she's been taking photos of herself since that point. And so this book might be my new favorite book of all time because you just follow the journey. It's the same thing as Alessandra in a way where you sort of see her journey, you see her change in her pictures. And this picture is like, it symbolizes strength, it symbolizes being a woman. And also, I think there's like this sort of sense of, I don't know, like she doesn't care. She doesn't care if she doesn't look the best. And I love that she kind of is like, she's taking charge of her portrait in a way that I feel like I've never quite seen done before.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 94 years old and she's still making images. And I don't know what's more inspiring than that. And the book is just a masterpiece. If you haven't seen it, Jeff, you have to see it because it's just like truly, it's genius. The sequencing, it was hard also for me. I knew I wanted to pick an image of hers, but this one just feels like strength. And I hope to be making images until I'm 94 years old, if I make it that long. And I think she's just such an inspiration to women, to people capturing their own becoming.
Well, I tell you what, when doing these conversations, I love it when I pull things out that I am now excited to go and see the book and to learn more about. And you've given me a bunch of those. So first of all, thank you for that. I also want to say that in looking at those five photographs and those five photographers, I can feel the line from your work or between your work and theirs. Now I can see why it is that you like them and how you have been affected by them as well in seeing your imagery.
That means a lot. Thank you. I mean, it is really beautiful how inspiration makes its way into your own work, and these women have really just, I'm so grateful that I've come into contact with them because it's just, there's nothing better than having people who show you like what you can do and what's possible in photo making. And I think these women are just like pioneers in their own ways and in their own genres. And it means a lot to me to have them as yeah, as people in my mind, even
Well,
constant dialogue.
and we appreciate you bringing them to our attention as well. So Sabrina Santiago, thank you so much for joining us on the Crit House.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching the Crit House.